Hello and welcome to another edition of EntheoRadio, where we talk about shamanism, psychedelics, and altered states for healing. This is your captain speaking, Captain Hugh T Alkemi, also known as Travar. I'm here today with a very special guest, Erika Buenaflor. Welcome to the show, Erika.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Trevor.
You're so welcome. Erika has a master's degree in religious studies with a focus on Mesoamerican shamanism from the University of California at Riverside. A practicing curandera for over 20 years, she's descended a long line of grandmother curanderas. She studied with curanderas and curanderos in Mexico, Peru, Los Angeles, and gives presentations on curanderismo in many settings, including UCLA. She lives in Tujunga, California, Los Angeles area. Great. Yeah, I'm new on that word. So welcome to the show, and we're both enjoying sunny weather because we're both in Southern California. Isn't this wonderful?
Love it. Love it.
I've been following you since I got your books several months ago, and first of all, I want to acknowledge that I don't have the book I'm about to talk about. Hold it up, will you?
Sure. Ta-da!
That one, I love that book, Curanderismo, Soul Retrieval. That one has really been a summertime read for me. And the other book I just started reading, and this is your older book, yeah?
Yeah, it's my first one.
Okay.
And then I have a third one coming out next year.
Wow, you're just all about it. So this one is Cleansing Rites of Curanderismo. Now, am I saying it right?
You are, actually.
Great.
You are. Yeah, that's good. I think you're maybe, well, no, never mind. I'm just not gonna say it, but you are one of the very few people that say it. Correctly. Way to go. Woohoo.
Yeah, my grandparents are from Mexico, so I understand a little bit. I don't speak fluent
that's
Spanish.
good, yeah.
And I have probably had similar influences growing up. If you lived in the Los Angeles area, I lived in the San Diego area.
Yeah. Yeah, if you have vapor rub which I do next to my bed, like you have like an influence there from Mexico.
Right. Oh,
vapor
rub. Right. Fun. So you actually practice. You're not just an author. You're not just a master's degree in religious studies. And are you an instructor, a professor?
That was a while back. Well, I was in grad school. I was teaching, classes for undergrad level, but no, not anymore. And I get invited here and there to, do a guest speaking, but I do my own thing now as a curandera.
Right. And I've seen you and your partner have invited people via Facebook. I'm part of your Facebook friends list, so I get invited periodically, and I'm like, I'm going to leave my little bubble of San Diego and get up there and experience something that you have to offer one day.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be a lot of fun. It's a great vibe here. It really is. Everybody comes here like, I want to move here. Just a lot of mountains, and It's very green. It's very lush, very quiet, very peaceful.
I wouldn't have thought Los Angeles would have that.
Oh yeah. Really, really quiet. Really beautiful.
Are you ready to take a time travel trip? Would you take us on a time travel journey?
Yes, of course.
Does that fit in the realm of curanderismo that you practice?
Yes, it does. It does.
Go back to your childhood and what you experienced that first initiated you into this path as a healer, and maybe speak to family and tradition.
Sure. It was both something that was very intuitive that came from me as well, and it was also seeing my great grandmother, who she helped with cooking. She did divination work with cooking. And this is something that always stuck with me. She could flip a tortilla and tell you who was coming over, who was pregnant, what was going on, and I'd just be like, holy cow, how does she know these things? And a lot of my tias, they knew a lot about herbs. And it was like a little bit of the older generation. My grandmother, she actually went to nursing school. It started becoming like very much, and I was from Chihuahua, so even though the remnants were still there, it was in Chihuahua, in Chihuahua Juarez So it's northern Mexico.
Yeah.
So what happened is that this became very westernized very quickly. You know, it was like we had Halloween more than we celebrated Dia de los Muertos. I think like my generation and maybe some younger generation were starting to bring back those traditions. But I would say like my mother's generation and maybe some grandparents there, they started becoming more westernized. So even though I was very much exposed to what herbs, you know, like what herbs were good to relieve headaches, digestion, they were really pretty basic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it wasn't until much later on that I started getting more involved in deeper traditions.
Nice.
But it was still like, it was very much in my family. Like my great-great-grandmother was a very well-known curandera. My great-grandmother was also, but then it started becoming more Western. If that makes any sense, you know? So it was a shift. It was a shift.
Beautiful. And so where was it? Was this in Los Angeles or are you in the Sonora different part of it?
This is I basically grew up in Juarez for about the first 6 years of my life, which is in northern part of Mexico. It's very industrialized. And then about when then it was like I went to El Paso for a little while after my father passed away, and then when I was 8, I came out to LA, and then I've been here ever since. But it wasn't the first years of my life, especially when I first came, you know, the first time we came to Hollywood, I remember I didn't speak any English, and one of the teachers was saying something, and I looked up, and I remember getting smacked on my back by a ruler.
Oh.
And that was like the first thing in my mind, like, holy cow, speaking Spanish, being Mexican. I just started learning like culturally that at the time, speaking Spanish and being Mexican was not a good thing.
Huh.
So, you know, for the first years, like the very first critical years of my life, it was very much trying to assimilate. And then when I got to college, I had I had some really progressive Chicanic studies professors who really just started they opened my eyes to like a new world. And I started learning like, holy cow, my culture is really cool, you know, and these indigenous roots are just awesome. And it just started waking something, like just reviving something in me. You know, because I remember doing my first limpia literally when I was 5 years old. My friend was hurt, so I had him lay down, and I was doing a limpia, but I did it with a battery.
Oh,
like I was very much, you know, I would go and I made actually cures for migraines. When I was 8 years old, I had a very good cure, you know, this like really like salt water with a lot of lemon. I knew already acupressure points to relieve aches in the body. So I knew these things like growing up. You know, it was very much in me. But it wasn't until I became an adult and started going to college that it was another, like more of my culture. I started embracing it more on a more conscious level.
right.
And yeah, and then during that time, it was very much, it was at a time where there was a lot of social justice issues going on,
Yeah.
especially at UCLA, because we didn't have a Chicanic studies department. So when I got there, it was 3 years after the hunger strike. And it was still very much a lot of walkouts, a lot of things to have the right to be able to study about our culture.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, a lot of people don't remember that, but I'm like, it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I came very much involved in social justice issues, and I hence wanted to become an attorney. But during that time, yeah. So during that time, my second year in law school, I met my first mentors. I was going to be going for just a trip to the Yucatan, thinking that I was just going to go there to relax with friends, but synchronicities happened where I met this really interesting gentleman who introduced me to my first 2 mentors. And ever since then, 4 years, about 7 years after that, every 4 months I was going down there to mentor with them, to study with them. And this was already me being as an attorney. So for a long time, I was living 2 lives.
Yeah.
You know, I was still a mentee, and I was still studying other kinds of healing practices and modalities here in LA when I would come back here. But I was going there quite frequently to continue my mentorship. And it wasn't until I had my catastrophic injury, where I had multiple fractures, fell off a cliff, hiking, skull fracture, brain hemorrhage, left AC dislocated, 2 vertebrae in my back fractured, completely shattered my coccyx, left leg I fractured in 3 places, right leg, knee down, all of my bones shattered and came out of my heel. And, and when they told me, they told me a lot of scary stories. I was never going to be able to walk again. Sorry, you left. And I also got severe osteomyelitis. So I lost half the bones in my right ankle. So they're like, yeah, if you do walk, it's going to be with some assistance. You lost half the bones in your right ankle. And they told me, your coccyx is shattered, so you're going to be in pain the rest of your life. And when I was in the hospital, I made a very conscious choice to embrace my don, which is in Spanish, the gift of healing from God, and which is something I know we all have.
Oh.
And I was in a wheelchair for almost a year, but during that time, I put into practice everything that I learned from my mentors. And I mean, including a lot of Soul Retrieval, which is, it's kind of like you think of like shamanic acupressure.
Okay, yeah.
Did a lot of clearing, worked with a lot of herbs, so I didn't have to take their Vicodin and their Percocet. I took a lot of alternatives, like with plant medicines, to help me to not so I wouldn't become addicted to all those pain medications that they were giving me, and could get off of them. And after not walking for almost a year, I walked with a completely normal gait in less than 2 weeks. So that was a time where it became, that was a very pivotal time for me to like, okay, you got my attention.
Yeah.
I'm listening.
That was this shamanic sickness, maybe a call like, hey, the phone is going to ring until you pick it up, or we're going to set your house on fire and you're going to come outside and talk to us.
Yeah, I was even after that, I was still a little stubborn, or various degrees of it, but I was becoming less stubborn.
I find that there's a lot of people, at least in my experience, and it might be the people I'm attracting, that are attorneys and that are very functional in altered states. Like, and they seek it out, and they probably somehow started that way in college or high school, and they really enjoyed an altered state. And then they realize that they can work with these altered states. And a lot of that is how attorneys do big cases and make points and stuff. They get in that alternative mind state that a shaman would get in.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, I think it's very much while I was practicing as an attorney, I used to dance. Dancing for me was definitely a way to get into an altered state. I remember one time doing a back bend so far back, and I think I think there was like my conscious mind go like, holy cow, can I be doing this? Is this possible that my body is contorting this way? And as soon as I did that, I felt like right on my butt. It's like, oh, okay, no, all right, yeah, no, it's pretty common. It's pretty common for a lot of attorneys. They may not embrace it, but yeah.
Right, absolutely, and that which you just spoke to, the dancing and the altered state, it's a little bit reflexive of Santeria or Voodoo, where they're ridden by spirit, or spirit comes in and allows the body to move in ways that we consider abnormal.
Yeah, I mean, that's common throughout so many indigenous cultures and traditions, very much so. Very, very much so. Even the sun dance, it's offerings. It's about getting into unison, and there's different purposes and different reasons, because sometimes you dance to get in the community. You dance as an offering. You dance because that's what I teach in a lot of the classes when I do shamanic dancing. I tell everybody, pace yourselves. Nice. Because this is an offering. The dance, the movement is an offering. The breath work is an offering for everybody that goes and spirals into the center.
Wow. I'm ready. Let's do some shamanic dance. That sounds so fun.
It is. Everybody afterwards is like, that was fun.
So there's a memory I have learning within the Toltec tradition of shamanism, where there's a spinning process similar to the Sufi spinning, and that might be a little similar to what you're describing.
Yeah, definitely. And there's different types of spinning. There's different types of spiraling within. There's, the Native Americans, they have Kokopelli, the image of Kokopelli with the flute, and he's spiraling within the heart.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of, there's so many dances and so many purposes in connecting with that, but definitely body movement, because, we're connecting with the auric fields around us,
Mm-hmm.
and especially depending on the intention, we tap into those different states of beings, those different planes,
Mm-hmm.
through our consciousness, through movement, and through intention.
So we're going to come back to present moment, and the time travel machine is sort of fading into the background. Hold up that book that you have one more time. Actually, let's start in past. This is your first book, right?
Correct.
So we'll keep getting up to speed. So what was the intention behind writing this book, and what were you hoping to reveal about spiritual cleansing, Limpias?
So a few things. When I first began studying Curanderismo way back, a while back, like 1997, back at UCLA, long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember being really frustrated. I remember taking a class. I did very well, but I was very frustrated because the way it was a very much a structuralist approach of studying Curanderismo. It's like, you have, first of all, it was very much like putting everything in boxes, putting everything into boxes and saying, well, if we think they came from indigenous cultures and traditions, a lot of these practices, but it's hard to tell. It's hard to discern which is which and which. And I just said to myself, wait a second, that's absolute BS. We just have to take the time to go through the records, to look at the things, and that's what I began doing. It's because I feel it's very important through that process for me, which is my part of my second book, Soul Retrieval. A big part of it was getting those indigenous parts of me back, throughout, because Soul Retrieval isn't just in this lifetime, it's throughout many lifetimes. So getting all those pieces of me back and once again embracing and reclaiming our culture, our traditions, our ways of being. So it was very much bringing up those traditions and linking them to the ancient indigenous peoples, specifically the Central Mexican peoples and the Maya peoples, and linking them and also showing people how to do it for themselves. Because I feel that some of my best and my favorite mentors were the mentors that taught me how to do the magic, taught me how to do the limpias.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes you'll go to someone, which is okay. It's just okay. You'll go to someone and they'll tell you, oh, well, it's $600 to do this, and I'm like, holy cow, like what? It's like, well, what are you going to do? Why are you doing? I mean, which is fine. If that's what you want to work with. But I said, you know what? Let me teach people how to do it. Let me teach people their basic steps, and then I encourage people go from there. Let me teach you how to do a fire limpia, how to work with, and how the ancient worked with the fire, and some of the basic principles of that. So people have the basic building blocks, not just to do the ones that I teach them, but then to add their own and add from it. And because a lot of it, it's very much innate with us. It's very much intuitive with us when we go and we have the basic tools, we can build from that.
Yes.
So it was really a source of empowerment for not just people, Latinx, not just the Latinx community, but everybody, that want to get back and connected with earth-based ways of healing and cleansing and manifesting.
Absolutely. I noticed you touched on this, and this is your book series. I'm not sure if it's in the first book, but I know it's in that second book, Soul Retrieval. Yours is the first book that I've read where it's referencing Curanderismo with an X, Curanderismo X. Is it? How do you say it?
Yeah.
And then Latinx. It's the first book I've read.
Yeah. It was something that somebody suggested to me, because I started seeing this too, a lot of people in the Latinx community, and it made sense to me. It made sense to me when I saw it, and I found out that they're going beyond binary genders. In my first book, I hadn't seen it, and then I started seeing it, and I embraced it because I feel that a lot of shamanic practices, they're beyond binary genders.
Right. Yeah.
They're zoomorphic. They're gender and gender and gender. It's not just binary. And a lot of the indigenous traditions, they don't function that way.
Okay, yeah.
They may function in certain levels, in certain ways, in certain, but it's not the way we may look at it.
Sure. Right. I understand. And language is, especially Spanish, Castilian Spanish is a very westernized binary thing. Either or, this or that kind of thing. So if my grandmother, if my Mexican speaking grandmother is listening, Amalia, if she's listening, then for her, would you explain what it means when you say X at the end of something?
It's basically understanding that it's a lot of people, and I see this too. There's one gentleman he's actually a really cool curandero in Izamal, where we do a lot of the retreats there, and he doesn't necessarily identify him as a woman. He cross dresses, he dresses, and he's not functioning in that world. It's someone who would not necessarily, and then when you're in trance state, you're not necessarily a woman. You're not necessarily just a man. You may be tapping into an animal guide. You may be tapping into various aspects of what maybe those genders entail, but you're not necessarily just that gender. So, and it's also leaving room for being more inclusive too, for people that, for the transgender community as well. Yeah. So for many reasons that I am leaning more towards using X rather than ASOS.
Right. So there's a new thing for a lot of people, the older Spanish speakers, they're not understanding that yet. So I hope mi abuela, she gets it and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then some people, yeah. One of my clients too, who does advertising and he's getting requests to do advertising to branch out to the Latinx community, and he has a very difficult time. He still says Latino, and I'm like, no, honey, come on. If you're gonna be my client, it's Latinx, okay?
Oh, fun. I mean, I'm kind of like trying not to take sides about this whole thing. And the language, it's ancient, and some of the languages have gender, and then our culture is really growing into a gender neutral space. I sense that, and like you said, it's experience trans, where there's no gender in trans.
It's one of those things that if somebody identifies themselves a certain way, you better believe I'm going to respect that. You know what I mean? And then we as people, as how we are, we also at the same time, if we have the power to express something and we have the means to do that, why not?
Yes.
Why not be more inclusive? But if someone doesn't want to be inclusive, I'm going to respect that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes. All right. So let's hear about some of your Limpia, La Limpia that you prefer, that you can just share with the audience, that you think are appropriate for us, for people that haven't read your book, for beginners, people that, let's say, a lot of people on my listeners of my show, they talk about, they want to hear things talked about from a psychedelic perspective or an entheogenic perspective, using mostly herbs and fungi. But I think we have a good third of my listeners that are interested in ceremony and the traditional ways of doing things. So maybe you can speak more directly to something that's real basic. And then 2 episodes ago, we had the conversation with Itzhak Biri about the egg and using the egg to remove negative energy by rolling it across the body. We've talked about trago, where it's like an exhale of high proof alcohol over the body. Maybe you could give us something new. Anything new? New and old at the same time, right?
But one very simple way and very, very powerful, very effective is to have a picture. For example, somebody just gave me recently an image of Maria Sabina, which worked with the Mazatec tradition, worked with hongos, mushrooms. And they said that because every time I sing a song, she's come to me that they see Maria Sabina, me shape-shifting into Maria Sabina.
Cute.
Like, cool.
Wow.
Cool. So one very cool way to do it is I have, and she's been coming to me a lot too, a lot. One way to do is to leave a candle, 7-day candle, and to do what's called the velación. And you can just do it with one candle and a glass of water next to it, and you write down in a piece of parchment paper with a pencil a request to connect, to open up. And also, after the candle is done burning, you can look at it to see, if the glass turns foggy or murky, there's some blocks there. If it goes out, your magic, you gotta cleanse yourself. Yeah, it's like you gotta do something to cleanse yourself, like an egg limpia, or you do a baño, which is a spiritual bath, like a cleanse with a bath. But that's a very simple way of doing it, is to work with fire and water, because they both are considered portals. They are opening to portals to not just the spirit realm, but other realms, wherever they may be, next to an image. It's a very powerful way to open up and connect with our ancestors and get their wisdom and their medicine.
Ooh,
so that's why I have my Maria Sabina there. Very
nice. Well, I am super excited to hear some of your music, and I'm also wanting to, because this isn't, I don't want to put you on the spot to sing or anything, but I want to know more about spiritual bathing, baños, Okay, baños. Let's talk about that. We've never talked about that on my show, and I know that's a huge part of a lot of traditional medicinal curanderX stuff.
Yeah. So baños, the best way to do it is you always approach this practice as being practical. You never want to make it too complicated, because the more complicated you make it, like, oh, I have to get this herb, I have to get that herb, it has to be dry, it has to be put in this, it has to be in the closet, it has to be underneath the bed, you don't do it. You may do it once. People don't do it afterwards. So that's first and foremost. Okay, that's always first and foremost. So go to the grocery store. Most grocery stores, they sell rosemary, sage, basil. If they have rue, usually the ethnic stores, they have rue. That's a really good one. Get all of them, or just a couple of them, or one of them. And you can either dry them. If you dry them, you don't need as much. But if you have them fresh, you can put them in a coffee maker or a tea maker, where you normally would put the coffee grounds. You just scrunch them up so you can get the oil out of the herbs if they're fresh. If they're dry, you just kind of just smush them a little bit. And then you put it in there, you just completely stuff it, where you would put the coffee grounds or the tea, and then you fill it up. So it fills up the way. For example, if it's a 12-cup top coffee maker, then you have that and you put that into the tea, into the tub. Okay. And you do that about 6 or 7 times. That's why you have a very concentrated blend inside your tub. Okay. And you would also couple it with 2 cups of Epsom salt, just to help to detox the body as well. Nice. That is a very effective way. When people ask me sometimes, like if they have attachments, like astral entities, or just they feel like their energy is down, I tell them to do baños. To do baños if they can weekly, just periodically, regularly, because after a while, things like that can't attach to us. And we get a lot more energy, especially if we feel lethargic. Baños are the way to go. Okay. It takes a little bit of time to prepare it, but it's very well worth it.
Oh, and then about roses. Do people bathe the roses and flowers and stuff?
Yes. Roses. I mean, the only thing with roses, it's ideal to try to get them from a garden rather than a florist or like a store. Right. It's just they don't have their, a big part of their magic and their power is their scent.
Yeah, their aroma.
Yeah, and a lot of the stores they've like hybridized them so they look really pretty and they last a long time, but they've lost their aroma. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a huge part of growing up for me. Is my grandmother, who I've referenced before on the show already. She always had a rose garden, and she always had an herb garden. And I've lived my life from the place of, if you don't have time to stop and smell the roses, what do you have time for? So whenever I'm walking down the street, I always stop and smell the roses, and it's paramount. The roses and the vibrations of wild roses that haven't been cultivated like for stores It's totally different experience. And in some ways, I think it really reaches out and contacts the ancestors.
Yes. Oh, yes. Indeed. Oh, yes. I mean, I would say, like, whatever you can get that's fresh, if you can get it, from maybe you're just like growing them in water, like jars, on your windowsill. That's better than something, that's the best actually, because if you can connect with whatever plant that you're going to use for that, that's ideal. And at the same time, keep it practical.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Very good advice. Wonderful. Okay, so we're moving forward into the next book. Let's talk about soul retrieval, because soul retrieval is so important, I think, for moderns, for Western modern people. What?
Yes.
So speak to soul loss and then speak to soul retrieval.
It is so common. It is, because some people think like, oh, even if you haven't had like a huge traumatic life, it was pretty, mellow. Little things happen through us, sometimes big things happen through us throughout the years. Maybe we hear something that really hurt us as a child, and a part of us leaves. And what ends up happening is that a lot of times um, people feel maybe like something is missing. They're depressed, but they don't know why they're depressed. They know something's missing. They know something's wrong, or it manifests in some kind of other physical illness. It manifests in recurring patterns, in relationships, whether it be work or romantic or friendships. It just until we until we're able to address what we need to do, make ourselves aware to heal those parts of us and reclaim those parts of us. And the soul retrieval, the approach that I was taught in this, because it's a little bit different, and I think there was a bit of a paradigm shift that even reached out into Mexico. And one of my mentors, because I had two sets of mentors, my second set of mentors, and all of them were wonderful, by the way. I'm very grateful for all of them. They were absolutely wonderful. And I would definitely say my second set of mentors, one of the ladies, Melina, she was very, very progressive. And actually both the ladies, they were very progressive. And they, if anything, they were seeing, it was a paradigm shift of no longer, I am the healer, I am going to heal you. I'm going to clear things for you. I'm going to open up a pathway. I'm going to do things, but you have to do the work. You have to take responsibility. Yeah. So it's a shift, because when I first learned soul retrieval, which was back in like approximately 2002, I did a session with somebody, and I saw some things that they didn't share with me, and it was their daughter was being molested, and the daughter came to her and told her what was going on, and the mother, my client, didn't ask the man to leave the house. And every time she saw, like periodically, her soul pieces actually were leaving, like were splattered all over the place in different realms, became very fragmented. So during our journey, I got those fragmented pieces and I brought them back. But guess what? She wasn't really ready to take responsibility. First of all, she didn't told me that this was going on. So when I told her what I saw, I wasn't sure if what I was seeing was metaphorical or if it was literal. So when I said, this is what I saw, I'm not sure, and she was crying. So I'm like, okay, yeah, what I saw, it happened. And we had a beautiful session, and she hugged me, she thanked me, but after that I never saw her again. And I went and I told one of my mentors, and Barbara, she was like, she kind of just said, oh well, yeah, it's because you Westerners, you guys just want a pill. Take a pill, make it go away. Take a pill, make it go away. Quick. Yeah, you don't want to do the work. You have to do the work. So she taught me this. This is this is her perspective, which is kind of true a little bit. Has some truth there. So she taught me this method of Curanderismo soul retrieval, which is really a manual of being good to ourselves. and doing it in a way that is understanding that our life is sacred, what we're doing is sacred, treating our practices as that, and we work with the cardinal spaces. We work with the south, the west, the north, the east, the center, to journey and get sacred essence energy from those spaces. Because it's believed that the sun and these cardinal spaces, they actually emit soul energy. Because soul energy was believed to be an essence energy that was found throughout the universe, that was given to us when we were born. But the thing is, after a while, when we're not taking care of it, parts of it leave, which is equivalent to being the soul, right? Yeah. And when we go to those spaces and we work consciously with and the cardinal spaces are also thought as like supernatural beings, and there's representatives there too, right? When we consciously work with them and we do ceremonies and we engage in that, we journey, we get medicine from those spaces.
Yes.
So from the south, we get medicine of giving us the will to discover and understand what happened. The west, we get energy to work with our shadow aspects. What is going on? What are our bad habits? How do we limit ourselves? What are our toxic energies that we have allowed? And then the north, connecting with our ancestors, connecting with cosmic beings, connecting with divine guides. The east, coming into new beginnings and committing to that. So it's working with all those spaces, and it's not necessarily that you have to do all those things to make the soul retrieval happen, because sometimes it just happens. It's very it's very eclectic, it's very fluid. So it's not thinking about like, okay, let me do what I have to do so I get to the end point.
Right.
It's a shift in perspective in how we approach healing. Not doing, okay, let me do ABC so I can get to the D and be healed.
Interesting.
It's understanding that the more we honor ourselves, the more that we're patient, compassionate, the more we will bring those pieces back, and that's what ends up happening. And those pieces don't leave, because what happens is if we bring them back and we're not ready to commit, just as they came, just as they left, they'll leave again.
Right.
They're like, you're not honoring me. You're still doing the same stuff that you were doing while I left. I'm out of here.
Right.
But if we treat it as a process and really discover and understand and are open to releasing and nurture ourselves, those pieces don't leave. And we get stronger.
And we become whole.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Integrated psychology. Beautiful. I have more honor and respect for you for explaining that in a way that is rarely explained by members of the Foundation of Shamanic Studies, where I studied. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me.
So I know you're up to stuff, not just because I watch your Facebook, but because the interview about you is up to stuff. And you got this new book that's coming out, and I highly, highly recommend the book that you have on your desk. It's somewhere around here. I can't find it today. Hold that book up for me again for our listeners or watchers. There it is. Curanderismo, Soul Retrieval. This came out this year, or when did it come out?
Yes, it came out this year.
So
yes,
tell us.
Oh, we know it was May.
Very nice. May 2019. Curanderismo, Soul Retrieval by Erika Buenaflor. Pick it up if you can on Amazon, right?
Yeah, anywhere. You can find it a lot of different places. Inner Traditions, you can find it anywhere.
Yeah. And the publisher's Inner Traditions, if you can go check out their catalog, they have a lot on shamanism, and they've got Erika's stuff. Tell me, you just got news that your books are going to be in Spanish. Yes?
Yes, the first book. Okay. Cleansing Rites of Curanderismo. Yeah, so I'm like, yay, wonderful, because I had a lot of people ask me, can you publish this in Spanish? Like, well, that's up to my publisher.
Nice. And then the other book is an audio book.
Yeah, it's coming out. I'm getting the details. I was just heard the news yesterday.
Oh, so there really ought to be more shamanism audiobooks. I've scoured audible.com for that, and it's in rare supply.
Yeah.
So you're very
Yeah.
lucky. You could be one of few people that have a shamanic audiobook.
Yay! Very grateful.
Very cool. So I think you do like sound healing stuff because I got invited to something like that. What are you up to? Tell us what we're looking for to expect from.
Next year I have a really exciting. I'm finishing up the Soul Retrieval classes this year.
Mhm.
Um, you know, we journey into the different underworlds. We go into the different cardinal spaces. I basically teach people and I show people we journey into these spaces. But next year, I have a very exciting, and they're all exciting, but I have one that I'm really excited about. Shamanic dream work.
Oh,
Yeah,
this is like one of
yeah,
my favorite topics this year.
yeah. So
Can you
it was
reveal?
just like, yeah, it's a shamanic dream work class. It's we're going to go through various aspects of how to understand, to tap into, because it's really understanding who we are, our subconscious and our unconscious, and understanding that communication and being more of an exploration of ourselves.
Absolutely.
And it's really simple. It's really simple because some people tell me like, oh, I don't remember my dreams, but then when I show them very simple ways of how to do it, eventually we start learning not just the fact that we dream many times a night,
Yeah.
but that sometimes in one dream we dream in multidimensional too.
Okay.
It's that's the other side of things.
Oh, you're
You
saying
know,
one dream becomes another dream because it's part of the first dream, maybe?
it could be, yes. I mean that's I mean, just this is our reality. It's quantum, right? Because I
Yes.
remember one time, it's it was very made to me, very clear to me in a few dreams, because we've done ceremonies in dreams, right? When we're doing dream work
Yes.
and working with different tools to do this too. There's one that I'm doing on medicine bundles to work with dreams, to actually activate medicine bundles to sleep with, so you can actually journey into different places and tap into those dream realms. Um,
I'm a little nervous. This is like yeah, we're going deep inside of the universe, inside of ourselves, that infinite space place. And we totally.
yeah, so but we do a lot of sound though. We do a lot of, because we show people and we start setting up, working already like an inception
Yeah.
of seeding a lot of these ideas with sound.
Okay.
I do drumming. We work with the different crystal bowls, Tibetan bowls, gongs, rattles, and we do a lot of breath work. Because breath work, it's so it's so important to help us to get into the trance states, and also to cleanse our body and rejuvenate our body. And a lot of the Maya vase, if you go to mayavase.org, a lot of the images where they're doing rituals or they're doing ceremonies, they're usually doing some kind of breath work. They do mudras, hand postures.
Mhm.
There's air volutes going into the nose. So breath work has always been a very critical part in doing journey work.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So when can we expect to see offerings that are along those lines, and where?
So January, it's in realizeyourbliss.com. If you go to the event page, you can see I have various classes that are going on there. I'm still doing the medicine bundles classes, but the shamanic dreamwork classes are going to be at Liberate Hollywood.
Okay.
And you can get all the information at realizeyourbliss.com on the events page. Um, and then we do a lot of other things too. We do moon bath ceremonies, and we do cacao ceremonies. And when we're doing the cacao ceremonies, they're a little bit different, because we honor the various months of the Central Mexican and the Maya peoples, like where the celebrations.
Okay.
So it's connecting with those traditions and the energies of the certain months, and what how they can benefit us in our lives, and connecting with those traditional ways of celebrating with cacao.
Very nice. So let's.
Yeah.
I guess probably several people who listen to my show on the regular would put a foot in my butt if I didn't ask you about entheogens and sacred medicine plants and your experience with those things, if you're willing to be revealed.
Yeah. Well, I have worked in Peru, with quite a bit with grandmother, ayahuasca, with San Pedro. Have done a lot of work with mushrooms, peyote as well. Yeah, they're definitely, yeah, they're definitely master plants. They're great helpers. They're wonderful helpers that I feel that they're coming more prevalent, and hopefully in respected ways and loving ways, to help us wake up, to help us to heal, to help us to reconnect,
Yes.
and to help us to remember who we are.
Yes.
And our infinite potential.
Well said. Well said. Give us.
Yeah.
So, do you prefer to work with one over another? Is it in sort of like the Don Juan Carlos Castaneda tradition? They were working with certain medicine plants. Do you do that? Is cacao yours, or is there a specific plant spirit that speaks louder than
So, for grandmother, ayahuasca, cognitive. Grandfather, San Pedro, the heart. Mushrooms, the third eye. So if we're attracting nasty things, or we need clearing, we need an opening, mushrooms, something going on with the mind, grandmother, ayahuasca. San Pedro, heart. Peyote is very much, they're all soul, but it's very much deep soul healing and clearing. So, but that's how they've come to me, so yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful. So, any chance that you might be wanting to do some stuff in San Diego where I could attend something in my own backyard? Oh, you knew. Did you know I was going to ask that? If you're watching this video, I know it's a podcast. There's a video on YouTube, EntheoRadio, and you can see this smiling, happy, shiny teeth girl laughing hard throughout this whole interview. And I think that that's a really great sign of her spiritual clarity, the laughter.
Thank you. Definitely a laughing shaman.
Oh, so come on down to Southern California and I will find you a venue, and we would love to experience some of your dreaming and musical practices as well as your ceremonial work.
Beautiful.
In the meantime, we have to be up in LA and Hollywood. And when's your next event? You have it on the calendar yet?
Yes. Oh, yes. I have all my calendar's out to February right now. So if you go on the website, you can see events happening all from now until February. So check them out.
It's Follow Your Bliss.
Realize Your Bliss.
Realize. All right. Realize Your Bliss. Checking it out. And then in the meantime, is there a erikabuenaflor.com, or is this the entirety of your web presence?
That's my web presence, yeah.
Okay. And then we can find, oh, look, it's super smiley all the time. There's a smiling picture of you in the trees here.
Yeah. It's really funny. My grandmother, growing up, when we would take pictures, she used to get teased a lot because I had a Kool-Aid smile. And, my grandmother would be like, Mija, don't smile so much. Oh. And then I would look very funny because I'd be like, trying not to smile. But I'm like, no, I just accepted it. I'm like, no, this is who I am. I can't do I'm so sexy, it hurts smile. It's just not me. Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's good. I mean, the laughter is such good medicine. And it's contagious. And then that's a vibration kind of contagion. So where are we? I'm looking at November. You have something coming up on the 21st. And even tomorrow, I think you got something coming on. No, wait.
Saturday.
So you have a Soul Retrieval workshop on Saturday. And is that still open, or did you sell out?
We are sold out for that one.
Amazing.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
People like you.
Yeah, thank you.
And then there's a cacao ceremony and sound bath next Wednesday night on the 21st.
Next Thursday.
Oh, man. This calendar's throwing me. Okay, it starts on a Monday, not a Sunday. I see. But yeah, you can go to realizeyourbliss.com if you're listening to this podcast, and you can check out events. And you got events put on in, I believe, mostly Southern California by this lovely lady you're listening to, Erika Buenaflor. And maybe she'll accept you amongst her friends on Facebook. Do you have enough room for new friends on Facebook? A lot of people
I
don't.
think so, yeah. I don't know what the limit is, but I think I do.
You got friends on Facebook and anywhere else we can find you, maybe?
Instagram.
Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah. Erika.Buenaflor, Curandera.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Wow, your calendar is all the way out. We got the medicine bundles towards the end of December. Are you doing anything special for the holidays?
Yeah, editing my third book.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah. The third book is coming out in July of 2020.
Oh,
Sacred Energies of the Sun and Moon.
wow. I'm excited. This is going to be a conversation between me and the publisher to get one of those books as soon as possible. Can you hurry up and finish that? So if a person, a listener, a friend who wanted to attend one of your cacao ceremonies, what can they expect out of that? And that's our final question for the day. What do people expect out of that?
That we honor the spirit of the cacao, the cinnamon, the vanilla beans, the water, the honey, the flowers, and the bees that came. And we learn a little bit about their gifts. And we begin to integrate the plant medicines into our body and start recognizing their spirits. And then we also learn about these ancient traditions and what they did during these different months. You know, they had a lot of beautiful traditions in these months, and we celebrate them.
Very beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And I wonder if there's a way to comment on this video on YouTube. If you can say whether or not you've experienced a cacao ceremony, what you got out of it, what your experience was like. Please share that. And I really want to encourage people to pay attention to their dreams, because those are important. They help us make this reality.
Indeed. Indeed.
All right. Well, this has been another edition of EntheoRadio, where we talk about shamanism, psychedelics, and altered states for healing. We've had a special guest, Erika Buenaflor. Welcome to the show, and I hope welcome you back in 2020.
Definitely.
Find her stuff online under her name. You can find her books at innertraditions.com. The catalog there carries 2 of her books and soon to be a 3rd. And you can find a whole lot of fun on realizeyourbliss.com. Is that right?
Yes.
And you can contact Erika for her healing work or divination or even some of her events.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here today. And this is Captain Hugh T Alkemi signing out, and we'll speak with you soon.